Do you have the dream to be a professional racing driver? Yes? Well, so do I. But how? I am Nathan and I am a student at the ISH in grade 10, where I do a piece of work called the personal project, where I researched and found out how to become a professional racing driver. And I will explain this same knowledge to you during this video. Where does this journey begin? Currently I am in go-karts. Go-karts are the most competitive and biggest form of racing you can do under the age of 16 years old. You have multiple sides in go-karting, which are based on engine type and brand. I started racing 6 years ago in 4-strokes, which is a great learning school for very young children. I started doing this in Kartbaan Lelystad. We came across this small track by accident and they offered us to take some lessons. So I took some lessons there to understand the go-kart and get my go-kart license, which is needed to legally participate in races. However, I stayed in 4-strokes for too long, which was a mistake. I stayed here for 2 years, but it would have been better if after I got my racing license, I moved to 2-stroke already, as the competitiveness of 2-stroke is much higher, which enables you to learn more about racing and have a better head start when you finally move to cars. This is why 4 years ago I moved to 2-stroke, a different class with a way more powerful engine and a more competitive playing field. I started this in the Netherlands and we came across this team called Hugo Motorsport. This was a good step, as the founder of the team was an ex-Formula 2 driver, which meant he had a lot of experience and was a good teacher. This year was very important for me, as I trained at least 2 times a week and got a lot of practice in, as practice makes perfect. This made me learn a lot. And 1 year later I moved again to a different team, as Hugo Motorsport, my former team, retired. I came across a new team called RR Racing, which was very fanatic and encouraged me to do my best. This year I became Dutch champion and Dutch rookie champion and Dutch Open champion in 2-stroke road tugs. This allowed me to get a ticket to the World Championships and get a real taste of one of the highest levels of racing. It was not my luckiest weekend, and overall I finished 15 out of 80 drivers in my category. But it was still quite good for my first international race. I won the championships with this go-kart, which is still hanging in my garage until this date. I see this as one of my biggest trophies. However, even though this was the World Championship of road tugs 2-stroke, it was still not the highest level of go-karting in the world. We also had to discover this ourselves, as my family does not have any experiences with racing. We learned that the higher level of go-kart racing are OK category engines. This stands for original cars. Why is this a higher level, you may ask? It is a higher level as the engines are more equal, but there are also 2 more very important reasons. The factory teams participate in this category. In go-karting, you have the factory teams that create the base of the go-kart, the chassis, which is this. But they also sell these to other teams that want to use their brand as the best teams of the world use and create them. The teams that create the go-karts race in OK category engines, in a different kind of championships than the road tax ones. Instead of World Championship road tax, they are in World Cup, FIA and FIA European Championships, which is organized by the FIA themselves, the same party that organizes the Formula 1. So for your racing career, I encourage you to immediately move to the OK type engines, as in this way you don't have to move categories and waste unnecessary time. To set an example, this chassis was created by Tony Kart, which is one of the leading factory teams in the world right now. But instead of them using it themselves, smaller teams also want to buy these chassis so they can use it themselves. This is what happened to me 2 years ago. When I was in RR Racing, they bought one of the chassis of Tony Kart and got to use it themselves for the season, instead of having to create their own one, which is really hard and costs a lot of money. The best drivers in the world all gather around in these same FIA created championships, as therefore these are the highest levels of racing. Almost every factory team is based in Italy, so the highest national competition is the Italian championships. Here the same top drivers as in the FIA organized races participate in, as their teams are Italian. But we also had to figure this out ourselves. The way we did this was first race in Germany with the OKJ category, the OK Original Car Juniors, as I was able to join the German championship. In this way I had a year to adjust to the different engine and level, as the German championship is the second highest national level. But because COVID-19, I did not race a lot that year. But in the end of the year, I raced in the German championship. We luckily came across a Dutch coach for an Italian factory team. We got to talking after she asked us the question, what is your vision in a professional car sport after you do some years in go-karting? My father and I did not have a clear plan. She explained us the importance to know what path you want to take in the car sport after go-karting, as there are so many paths and the road to success is very narrow. We agreed, and eventually we started to do some tests with this factory team called Energy. It is a team with a lot of success in the past, and as they are one of the most experienced go-kart teams in the whole world. An example of one of their former drivers is Alex Albon, who raced in Formula 1 in Red Bull last year. This year we raced in the Italian Championship, in combination with the FIA European Championship. This was the highest level of go-karting available in the whole world in 2021, as the FIA World Championship was also cancelled due to COVID. Almost every top professional driver drove the exact same championship in their youth as I currently do. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon, George Russell, just to name a few. These championships are definitely on the road to become a successful professional driver, and I strongly recommend it for you to become a professional racing driver. These championships are also where F1 teams scout their drivers. Recently, Zach Brown flew in to watch a race and scouted for the McLaren program. Zach Brown is the head manager of the McLaren F1 team. The champion of this season's FIA Europeans original kart is under contract with Mercedes. So if you want to get spotted, this is the place to be. There are a lot of teams to choose from, and they each have their advantages and disadvantages. But this is also part of a successful racing career, as you have to know which team fits for you personally. Can you handle the pressure? Are you and your team on the same line? Aside from talent or persistence in the sport, there sadly is another major factor that is a necessity in racing. To be straight to the point, this problem is money, and what you're willing to sacrifice for racing. Almost everyone driving in the FIA and Italian Championship do not attend school. Some even stopped with school since they were 12, and some never did it, as they were born to be racers, and the only thing they know is racing. At least half of the drivers moved to Italy, as this is where their teams are located. My dad personally demands for me to keep up with school, at least until I am finished with high school. Why? Because having a diploma is a very important backup plan if the racing does not work out in the long run. But to be a professional racer, it is definitely an advantage to quit school and give everything for your sport, in order to give all of your focus. So this is something you have to think about before you plan on becoming a professional racing driver. What are you willing to sacrifice, and what are you willing to give in order to become a professional racing driver? Every race sport with engines costs a lot of money, and go-karting is no exception from this. You can be the best driver in the world, but if you are in one of the factory teams, you still have to pay a certain amount. A complete year of international karting and a factory team can cost you 300,000 euros a year. This is a huge pile of money, with only a small percent of the world can pay. Because of this reason, a lot of very talented drivers are forced to quit their racing journey, as they simply cannot pay for it. You also have the exact opposite from this, as some drivers' parents are billionaires who do not have the slightest problem with paying a little extra and will buy everything there is to buy. The money in the race sport is so important that you can almost buy a seat with it in Formula 1, which is the highest level of racing. See for example Nikita Mazepin. He paid 20 to 40 million euros to race in Formula 1 for 1 year. Although he was very good at karting, he was a midfield driver in Formula 2 and should not have been in Formula 1. The road to Formula 1 is even more expensive than karting. The first year of Formula 4 costs around 500,000 euros a year. Formula 3 costs around 1.2 million euros a year. And Formula 2 costs around 2 million a year. So what can you and I do to find money for this? The best way to go around this is sponsoring. But how do you get sponsors? Sponsorship has to do with marketing. You have to have something the company wants and show their company on. In this case, this is talent. But first you have to have a good plan into contacting possible sponsorship companies. These would be companies that can show their name on you for an advantage. Think of something like DHL. They are a delivery service, and sponsoring in race sport can show their packages are delivered very fast. You do not want to contact companies like Cambridge, as they have nothing to do with racing. For example, the company could be visible on your car, helmet or suit. This is not only for the helmet, but also you can also show exposure of companies on the suit. For example, on the sides and in the front. To set an example, I've brought my own helmet, and as you can see, there are a lot of companies showing on them, which you can have as well. But even outside of this, the driver has to show their active connection with the company. For example, communicating about the company on social media. The driver has to be a proper example of the company and has to reflect it on a good way. For this, good behavior is very important. An example of this is if you want to be a Porsche junior driver, you reflect Porsche. And if you are spotted drinking alcohol, for example, a fine of 20,000 euros has to be paid back to Porsche. Things like this are all under contract in a sponsorship. You do not always have to contact the sponsor. They can also contact you. But for them to notice you and know you exist, you have to be unique and be places where other drivers aren't. An example of this can be in a racing article, in your local newspaper, a YouTube video, a personal project video, etc. I was also interviewed multiple times for some karting and racing newspapers, which also made it to our local newspaper, Bussen News. Here are some pictures. This was the first step to becoming a professional racing driver, go-karting and a good financial plan. Besides talent, dedication and money, there are also choices someone can make in becoming a professional racing driver. Formula racing is the top, but also very hard to achieve. Someone could also, for example, aim to drive Grand Touring cars, which are GT races. Porsche, Mercedes, Lamborghini all have professional GT race teams and drivers, and are held all over the world. Besides this, the chance of becoming a paid driver is way higher in GT races than in Formula. In Formula 1, only 20 drivers get paid, even though hundreds try to reach it annually, which makes the chance of success statistically smaller in comparison with GT races, as there are well over 400 paid drivers, which is another factor to choose GT over Formula 1. But you have to know yourself what path you want to choose. This is a very important step in becoming a professional racing driver, as you have to have a clear mindset of where you want to go. One problem I struggle with is that the path for me is still a little bit fake. Of course I want to try Formula, as it is the absolute top, but the chance of success is simply so much lower than GT races. Why take the risk, when Formula 1 is also more expensive to get in? In the next couple of months I will try to learn to drive and test in some cars and talk to people that have knowledge and advice for me, to get a clearer point of view where I want to go, as this is very important. To get some extra information on the topic, I interviewed ex-professional racing driver Joey Hansen, one of the best go-karting drivers the Netherlands has ever seen. On the topic, I interviewed ex-professional racing driver Joey Hansen. And can you briefly summarize your go-karting and racing career? What championships did you do and what kind of cars did you race?
Well, the championships I did, I started at 4 years old, and from mini juniors to seniors. First of all, I did most the Dutch championships and stayed in the national leagues. And once you grow older, you want to go international, and then you proceed to the international meetings like European championships and world championships. For me, it started a bit later, the international scene. I think I was 16. I did my first European championship, and I did win one round. I finished second one round, and the other rounds I finished just outside the top 10, I think. So that was not too bad. Then I started to do cars and karting at the same time. Open wheels. It means like Formula 1 style cars. And we've done some touring cars as well. So, like big heavy 6-cylinder cars, more like NASCAR looking cars. And once we did that, we moved on to NASCAR in Canada. And of course that's a big V8 with 850 horsepower. And you drive in a circle, but also on the circuit. Not many people know this. And that was about my car racing experience. And since when we ran out of money, I turned back to karting, and for the better actually. Then I won the World Cup in 2011. Yesterday, exactly 10 years ago. So that was it was a good memory. And the following years I started to make my money with go-karts. So I was you can say a professional driver until 2019. So pretty long time in racing.
Okay, thank you. And what were the reasons for you to drive in America and Australia instead of Europe? What were their advantages and disadvantages for this?
Well, the racing scene in circuit racing is mainly based on Europe. So the level and everything and the competition between teams, sponsors, everything is higher. Also in America, sponsorship is easier to get. So the next step for me would be Formula 3. And we just didn't have the money we could put it in, but then it would be a lousy season. Yeah. So we could put a decent season in America compared to Europe. So it was the safer option, but also a very difficult option.
Okay. And you've been walking around in the racing world for many years now. And what choices did you see other drivers make? And did you see any wrong choices that a lot of drivers made? And what were some choices you saw drivers do that were kind of smart?
Well, definitely I've seen a lot of less smart choices. It's like to move from the small teams and your private group to immediately to the big leagues. And the smart choices would, I think a really good example for a smart choice will be Rinus van Kanthout. He moved to the US, and he's now like a championship contender actually. So okay. In America, it's definitely to go for the big money. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's more sponsorship in America, so that's a good reason to move to America.
Yes, definitely. I would say also in open wheels, like IndyCar and stuff, is when you compare the level of the driver, Europe, it's all mainly Europe based. So all the best drivers, the best teams, and everything is based in Europe, to be honest. And I don't want to say there's bad drivers in America, but in general, the European drivers, they are used to more competition.
Okay. And you also said that it's smarter to stay in a small team instead of immediately move to a big team, and this is to get more experience when you're still in a smart team, so you can really show your worth in the big team.
Yes, definitely. Also, when you're in a small team, you get more attention.
Okay.
And if you go to the big team, there's like maybe 5-6 really good drivers, and then you have to share all the best stuff. And it's also like it's Formula One. You always have to beat your teammate to be the best.
Yeah.
And if you don't beat your teammate, then the focus is usually on the other driver who can win it. So that makes life harder.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And money clearly is a very important thing in the racing world. Sponsors are often needed for this. And did you find any sponsors in your career? And if yes, how did you find these?
Yes. We did find some sponsors, a few small ones, and we find these through connections. We had a supporters league, like everyone pays €5 a month. And once a year we have like a big party, and they can drive go-kart themselves and everything.
Yeah.
But through these people, you get to know more people, and they know, like their boss or something. You get more exposure in the world. And then we found from the early in the beginning, like it's distant family from my dad, and like there was a mushroom farm, and he paid basically all my way to NASCAR. So we were really happy with this sponsor, but it's really difficult to get to find someone as crazy as he was. So I'm really thankful for this.
Okay.
To be honest, yeah.
And what are some important characteristics you have to have as a professional racing driver in a racing team? And do you have to be very serious, or can you be kind of funny, or hardworking, or what are some important things?
Well, the important things are to look outside the box, and to be a bit technical as well. It's always better to be technical, so you know what's going on and everything. And if you know what you're doing and the stuff works, then people also need you to develop material. If you're only a fast driver, then they only need you to win races. Yeah. So, that's a kind of a difficult thing to explain. But also a very important thing would be, I'd say, you have to be a tough guy on the track and a nice guy, like a likable guy off track. Yeah. Because, if someone likes you more than someone else and the other driver is faster, they still want you to win. So you have to make people want you to win. So that's an important characteristic. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your time, and those were all my questions.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate. Good luck.
Have a good day.
You too, mate.